Hi, it's Colleen. Today I'm going to show you how to add elegant details to your cards using Wow embossing powders. And please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting that little bell. So first I want to show you how I label my Wow embossing powders by the color. I just die cut a circle and then I heat emboss the color. And see how easy it is to be able to find the color you're looking for? Really easy system. Today we're going to work with a new trio called Pick Me Up, and it's going to be released later in the month of January. But I wanted to show you how beautiful this is going to look to add the details to the card I'm going to make. So we're going to make a rainbow of clouds. So you're going to need a cloud stencil, you're going to need inks in rainbow colors, and you're going to need a blending brush. So I'm going to start out by using the purple color in Pinkfresh Studio called Soft Lilac. I'm using all pastel colors today for my rainbow, but you could use any colors that you want. And I'm just adding different colors every time, and I'm moving the stencil around each time so that it looks different. So you don't have, an exact duplicate of each cloud, because clouds all look different. The second color here is Ocean Breeze. And then the next color I'm going in with is Fresh Pear. And then I'm going to go in with Lemon Whip, which is a really pretty yellow color. And the last color I'm going to use is Coral Reef. And you can see how I am shifting that stencil around every time I add a new color. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going back through the entire gamut of colors, starting back at the beginning. So I'll actually have two sets of each color on my rainbow card. And I don't know about you, but I never get tired of making these rainbows. It's a very simple thing to do, and any ink colors would work if you follow the rainbow order. So I'm adding my last two colors in here, and I'm really cramming them in here because I want every color in there twice. And I'm determined to make it fit. So I'm finishing up with my last color, and then I'm going to go to the next step, which is to add the details. Now it's time to go in and add the details, and I'm using the Wow embossing pen. This pen is fantastic to add little tiny details here and there, and it's the same process as the embossing pad. So I'm using my little embossing buddy to wipe over the top of the card so that the embossing powder does not stick where I don't want it to. Once I'm done with that, then I can start by placing the stencil over the area where I want to add the embossing powder. And the embossing powder I chose to use today is called Minty. And it's in that trio of powders called Pick Me Up that will be released later this month. So you can see I've got my Wow embossing pen out, and I'm lining up the stencil with each row again. And it takes a little bit of time to do that. But once I get it lined up, then I will start adding the embossing ink with that embossing pen. So you can see I'm just tracing the edge of the stencil with my embossing pen. And I'm going to do that with each row of my clouds. And the embossing pen is really juicy and inky, so it works really well for this type of adding this type of detail. So now I'm going to go and repeat the same process with each row of clouds. Line it up and go over it with my embossing pen. And the nice thing that I have found with the embossing pen, which is consistent with the embossing pad, is that it is slow drying. So you can add a lot of detail before you add your embossing powder. It will stay wet for you for quite a while, because you will see here I'm going through the entire row with my embossing pen before I go back and add my powder, and it still adheres beautifully. So I love the pen for adding little teeny tiny details. Now I'm going in with my Minty embossing powder. Can you see how glorious that is? Oh, it's beautiful. And I am adding the embossing powder to the areas where I had put my pen. And if you find that you have excess embossing powder where you don't want it, go in with a brush like I'm doing and just remove it. It's really not that hard if the embossing buddy doesn't get everything for you. Now I want to show you how that looks. Can you see the difference? How adding this detail really steps it up a notch for your backgrounds? Oh, I never get tired of adding details. It's actually my very favorite technique to use with embossing powders. So now I'm placing my background on my card base. And all you really need to do when you have a really busy, bold background like this is just add a sentiment. And that's all I'm going to do now is add a happy birthday sentiment, because I felt like this is a really happy, jovial, colorful card, and it's perfect for a birthday. So I'm adding my happy sentiment right there, and then I'm going to place that right over that word birthday. And then I'll be ready to adhere my sentiment onto my card base. So all I'm doing now is propping up my sentiment onto foam tape, and I'm going to remove that backing, which is always a difficult chore for me. So I found that if I use tweezers, it makes it much easier. And then when I'm done with that, I can adhere my sentiment to my card, and my card is finished with all that beautiful detail. Here's a few more examples of cards that I use where I added details with embossing powder and the embossing pen. You can use your imagination on whatever ways you want to add the details, and they make all the difference between a regular card and a wow card. Thanks for stopping by today.